Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. So we would like to recognize that collectively we are on the unceded territories of all the First Nations within our regional boundaries. And could I have an approval of the agenda? Approved by Sal, seconded by Vivian. All in favor, opposed, motion carried. The special staff report, do I read that or no?
No, Chair, you can just move it as set out on the agenda if you wish.
Okay. Could I have somebody move that, please, as set out on the agenda? Sal, Vivian? All in favor, opposed, motion carried. We go to consent agenda. Is there anything here that needs to be removed? Vivian?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Russell. I'd like to remove the general select, the July, August 2021 select funds report, item 4.2.1, please.
Okay. Where do we want to put that, Kristen?
Does it go under late business? That would be.
We can, sorry, we can move that to staff reports, so we can put that as 6.5.
Okay, 6.5. Okay, could I have a motion then to approve the consent agenda? Moved by Sal, seconded by Tony. Call a question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Thank you. Business arising from the minutes. I don't believe there is any. And then staff reports and other business, CAO verbal update. Melanie?
Just Russell,
Thank you, Chair.
Vivian had her hand up, Russ.
Yeah, okay.
I just wanted
Vivian.
to ask, thank you, just from the minutes, I know we were going to the ambulance services and I couldn't remember, are they coming to our next board meeting? Is there a reply on that?
Yeah, I don't know. Melanie, do you know that?
Sorry, who was it that you wanted to inquire about?
The ambulance service?
BC Ambulance, we have not yet received a response from them about what date or we don't have a date from them. I did
Okay,
remind them
thank
of
you.
our continued interest when I met with them about a couple weeks ago, and I haven't heard back yet.
So just a real quick note on that subject. Pemberton has now received another full-time car and hired 2 more full-time people. So it's a step in the right direction, that's for sure. So we'll see if anything more comes. I don't know, Worcester, Squamish, if they've been added onto or not, but we'll see. And then with Lillooet, same thing. So
No
we need to keep on
response.
top of them for sure. Yeah, Vivian, did you have something else to add?
Well, just that I've been asking for, it's, months now, and I just keep getting, yes, we'll get back to you. But that's more for the northern area here. So I think it's worth continuing to ask and maybe bring up when we have our chats with UBCM people. Okay, I just wanted to
Yep.
follow up on it. Thank you.
Okay. So for 6.1, the CEO verbal update, the civic addressing regulation and process, were you going to talk to that, Melanie?
Yes, Chair, thank you. There had been an inquiry from a resident in one of the electoral areas about addressing the house numbers on the houses. And
Yeah.
so our planning and development department did provide some information, but because there have been some queries in that direction, we had thought it might be helpful to provide a quick summary of how it works and see if there were any questions in that regard. So the existing property should already have an address, and it could be that the previous property owner maybe never posted it. So if a property owner doesn't know, they can just call us and we'll let them know what their assigned house address is. And if there isn't an address yet, it can be assigned upon request. Usually that occurs at the time of building permit issuance if it's a new construction, or if there's a subdivision. When the subdivision occurs, the civic addresses, which is the house numbers, can be assigned. But again, if there isn't one, then the people just need to request it at the time that they're doing the building permit application. Or if there's a subdivision occurring, that'll be part of the conversation that occurs at that time. The SLRD is responsible to assign the civic address. We have a small service, like a cost center for that purpose, and we do that work every year. And the property owners themselves are responsible to go put the little numbers up on their house or on their gate post or wherever they're affixing it, so that when people go by, they could see the number. That's the property owners themselves that have to do that. In addition, there's also the street sign information, and the road authority is responsible for like the street names, where they're posted, and the standards of how they're posted, and making sure that they're maintained and visible for people. So if there are any questions related to the street signs as opposed to the house numbers, then you would go to either MOTI or the local government, or Flynn Road if it's a forestry resource road. So that's kind of how that process works. Were there any questions? Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Do we have a minimum standard for the size of the numbers? Because I know from being in the fire service, when you're responding to a call, where I worked in Richmond for a long time, they came up eventually with a standardized minimum size, because some of the numbers would be so small and put in places where you would never find them. So it's really important to make sure that people put their street addresses where they're visible from the road when you've got emergency people responding. So just wondered if we have a minimum standard for that.
Yeah, that's actually what we say, is that it should be prominently placed and clearly visible.
Right. But no minimum standard for size?
Not that I'm aware of. The two pieces
Yeah.
were prominently placed, clearly visible.
Yeah. Well, we should, maybe think about that, having like 4-inch letters or 6-inch letters as a minimum, because on some of these larger properties, even when they put them out at the road or whatever, it's still it's still challenging to see them. So anyway, it's just something to think about. Thank you. Anybody else? Tony?
I just want to follow up on what you were saying there, Russ. Certainly around some parts of Furry Creek and Britannia, really, really difficult to see house numbers. And not just in the regional district either, but we were in Squamish the other day looking for a house, and yeah, it was a mystery tour. The numbers were hidden behind bushes, and yeah, as you say, they're like 2-inch numbers that would be okay on the fridge, but not much good on the exterior of the house. So I know that maybe is something that we could look at ourselves, but also just do it in a way that raises the issue with the municipalities as well. Because it's not just when Tony and Mo are looking to find their friend's house, it's as you say, if there's an ambulance call or a fire call, they don't want to be cruising around for half an hour looking for the place.
No, I totally agree. So Melanie, could we have staff look into that?
Yes, you can.
Do you need a motion for that?
I think that would be a good idea for tracking. Yes, please.
Okay, then I would make a motion that we have staff look into the minimum size for address numbers for residences throughout the regional district. And also contact the member municipalities to see if they have standards and if we could all sort of get on the same plane so that we're all doing the same thing. I'll move that. Tony will second it. I'll call a question. All in favor, opposed, motion carried. Thank you.
Chair Mac, it's
Yes,
in area B, it's quite a patchwork. It seems on the reserve, there's some nice green signs with black numbers that are fairly visible. And in different neighborhoods in B, there's a few signs, but there's a lot of pockets where there aren't any signs. And I think it might have been some area B residents that were asking the SLRD to, of course, this becomes an emergency when there's a fire or something like that. And so I did establish, and thank you, Melanie, that we don't provide the signs, we just provide the numbers and possibly some direction on how big the lettering should be, that kind of thing. But we really have some gaps, and I'm wondering, because those green signs that I see here and there, not just on the reserve, but in some of the non-off reserve neighborhoods, that must have been a project at some point, probably fire related, where, Kristen, have you got any recollection of any emergency services doing some signage projects in the past? Certainly before my time as director, but I mean, not that long ago, apparently. No?
you know, Vivian,
Yes.
like I've noticed, like say driving to Merritt, a lot of the TNRD, I believe that's the regional district there. It seems, hey, you're like they're kind of the lime green sign with the numbers on it. Yeah, that in the TNRD, it seems to be where they are. Definitely on reserve land, but also off reserve land. So maybe they've got some sort of a program where you can get your, your numbers in that from TNRD department or something, because they are very standardized and they're very visible, very.
See, and that's not,
Maybe,
those signs do jump out at you. And I mean, I'd be happy for some consistency, just because anything that can save emergency workers some time is a good thing. So maybe staff could check with what TNRD is doing, just as an aside. And I'd like to somehow see us help get those gaps filled. I'm sure if residents had to pay some small fee, that would be all right, but let's just try and make it easy for them. So just some thoughts. Thank you.
yeah, I totally agree. I think that's a very good idea. Okay, any other questions, Sal?
Yeah, we've got very similar issues up here in Area A, of course. And we got lots of properties that don't have numbers at all. And it's so important. And we've pushed it over time, but it's hard to get everybody to get numbers up. And if we had a program, I think it would be really beneficial, because they're so important when it comes to an emergency. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, do you have enough to work with, Melanie?
Yes, Chair, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're on to 6.2. Request for decision, temporary use permit number 62, renewal, float lane tours and staging area, Kayaks Adventures, Area A.
What's happening?
I don't know, something it's, here we are, we're back. We've got Tony's smiling face. I think Kimberly, when she came on, she shut the whole system down. Good morning, Kim.
Morning.
Okay,
So
so we're talking here now 6.2,
Okay,
the TIAX decision or request.
did you want a presentation?
Yeah, just an update. I mean, I think it's a wonderful thing, so, but that's just me, so.
Okay, yeah, so I'm Kim Needham, Director of Planning and Development Services. The application that we're talking about today is temporary use permit number 62. It's a renewal of an existing permit. The applicant is requesting for another 3 years. So currently there is a TUP that has the TUP authorized a floating dock, ramps, an office building on skids, an RV, a sea can for storage, portable toilets, a horse corral, etc. So this business is an operating business. They have followed through on the conditions of their TUP, and staff are recommending that the TUP be renewed for another 3-year term expiring on July 25th, which was when the existing TUP would expire. So that would be 2024.
2024, okay. Any questions? Vivian,
Thank you.
go ahead.
Hi, morning, Kimberly. First of all, I really like the clauses F, G, and H, where you're talking about replanting with native species and doing a bird nest survey and so forth, and just being conscious of the natural world. I appreciate that. Is this, I mean, there's a limit on how many times you can have a temporary use permit renewed, right? Is it just twice? So this is just the second time this has come up? And they're considering something more permanent in the future, right?
Yes, we hope so. They would have to apply for rezoning to get that
Right.
authorized.
Okay, that's it. Just compliments on those clauses. Thank you.
Tony?
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions. Kim, I'm assuming that if when they get to the point of applying for rezoning, would we then be saying to them, get the sea can out of there and the temporary stuff and build some proper structures so it looks better? I'm not sure what the process is.
It depends. We could rezone them to allow them to have exactly what they've got now. That would be a decision of the board at the time. We do hold a letter of credit in the amount of $10,000 to remove anything from the property in the case that we do want to see that use taken off the site.
And the other question I have, which is more for Sarah, I think, than stuff, is I recall when this first came up, there was some opposition from residents in the area not wanting planes buzzing over their houses and things like that. And I just wondered if that just died away or if that opposition is still there.
Yeah, there's a little bit, but it's under the control of the federal transport ministry. So the SLRD doesn't really have any say in it. So yeah, and the Kayaks Adventures is a great supporter of the Bridge River Valley, and they actually, with all their clients, request $10 that goes to the BRBCA Trail Committee. I think last year was over $6,000. They definitely support the community.
That's great. Thank you.
So I'll move the motion, the preferred
Okay,
motion.
I'll second. Yeah, I'll second it. And call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. All right. Kim, are you going to stick around?
Yeah, we got another one.
Because well, there's still some more of these requests for decisions, but at some point, I guess late business or director's notice motion or something like that. I just want to talk about those the raves or whatever they're called. I know Tony's got a lot more expertise on this than I have because they seem to have moved up here now. But anyways, that's for later on. So we'll go now to 6.3, request for decision, temporary use permit number 68, Jeffrey Edward, Area D.
Thank you, Chair. So CUP number 68 is an application from Jeffrey Edward. It is for a temporary cafe and restaurant in the area where the previous Galileo coffee shop was. Many of you will recall that on just south of Britannia Beach. And the Galileo was there for many years, serving coffee to the community and the traveling public. So this would be these would be temporary structures. They would have to be permitted. You can see the elevations in the attachment. It's kind of a cute little design. There would be contained garbage facilities and waste facilities. So there are a number of conditions attached to this TUP. One is from Vancouver Coastal Health. So there still are approvals required for the wastewater treatment. And those would be a condition of actually starting this business. So there would be no building permits issued or anything allowed to happen there until Vancouver Health signed off. As well, Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure does want to see the site plan to ensure that their snow removal operations are not impacted by this use. But bear in mind that the Galileo Cafe was there with its parking, et cetera, for many years, and the ministry did manage to do the snow removal around that particular use. And so this is very similar. So those are definitely going to be conditions that will need to be addressed prior to this business being operational. Not a lot more to say on this one. You can see the permit itself and the conditions that are contained in it, and the referral comments that we did receive back. Staff are recommending that this TUP be issued for 3 years, expiring September 29th, 2024.
Thank you. Tony, do you have anything to comment on this? I'll get you, Sal, and Vivian.
Okay, thank you. Am I? Yes, I am. Yeah, I would support this 100%. Jeffrey, I haven't met him yet, but he called me probably 3 months ago now and laid out his idea for me. And you know, you get calls like that and you think, well, I wonder if anything's going to happen with this. But I've been really impressed with the way that he's gone about it. The first thing I told him he had to do was call Kim and to look into the TUP process. And if you look through the attachment, look at the pictures and drawings that he's done, he's taken it very seriously, and he's got a good plan there. He's a young man; he's only about 27, I think. So when that Galileo coffee shop was open, it was a really, really popular pit stop for people that were traveling up the highway. This would, well, it would replace that. It was the same kind of function. If you look at the drawings, if he has that little tabletop area on the roof, if you think where they are, that looks right out across the sound and over the Tantalus Mountains. It's a fantastic view of the glacier and everything. So I think that it will become a very popular little stop. The other comment I have is that, well, a couple of comments. We've got construction happening there now and will be increasing in the next while until you'll have a large number of people that will need places to go and grab a coffee, grab lunch, grab breakfast when they first arrive, that sort of thing. And there's no way that the little cafe in the museum can handle all that kind of traffic, nor the little fish and chip shop on the highway. So it's something that would be welcome. One of the things I told him to do was go and check with the community. So he got in touch with Chantel Nichols, who's the chair of the BBCA, and she has indicated that the association supports him. So I don't see any problems with this at all. And the final thing is that if we issue a permit for 3 years, when that's expiring, the commercial area in Britannia should be on stream. It should be operating. So it's kind of perfect timing in a way. And I think I know he's going to be talking to McDonald's about the possibility of moving into that commercial area. So that's one possibly thing for him. And if it's really successful and we really like it, maybe we look at rezoning and the site he's going into now. And the site, by the way, if you can visualize that that old house that was the Galileo coffee shop and the mining museum, which is a little north of it, is between the coffee shop and the mining museum. So it's a great spot, and I don't think the parking will be any kind of a problem at all. And in terms of what he's required to do from coastal health and everything like that, I don't see there be any problem at all for him in complying with those things. As I say, he's listened and done all the things up to date that he's supposed to do, and I don't see why he would change. So there you go.
Thank you. Sal?
Yes, I'm in agreement with this. I'll add one thing though. When you travel the Sea to Sky Highway, there's no ministry rest stops, ministry transport rest stops. And I know that there's one at oh geez, just tips of mind, but they're all either at provincial rec sites or stuff like that. And usually you can't find parking anyway. So somewhere along that highway, there needs to be some public rest stops, the Ministry of Transport style, where you pull out and you can have a rest stop and so on and so forth. I can see that little site, and they mention it in the Vancouver Coastal Health about the amount of traffic that will use their restrooms, because it's going to be handy to use those restrooms. So somewhere on the Sea to Sky Highway, there's got to be some MADI rest stops with toilet facilities. Thank you.
Vivian?
Thank you. I support this. I completely agree with what Sal's saying too. I missed Galileo, and it is a well-placed stop for travelers on the way to the city and the Sea to Sky. And this proposal has kind of ticked all the right boxes for me, and he's watching out for wildlife and using carbon neutral food and beverage packaging and so on and so on. I just wondered, is there any reason why? Because the toilets are going to be busy, and I'm really happy they're not those horrible porta potties. Is there a reason why it can't be hooked up to the Britannia system? It's a question, I guess, for Director Rainbow.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, the Britannia system, it doesn't extend south of the mining museum at the moment. And if we approve the development, the Tiger Bay development, then that eventually will have to be hooked up into the main system. But that's not happened yet. So I don't know I don't know what it would cost to move, to do something from the Galileo site and hook into the system close to the museum. I think that would be a little too expensive. But I think when Tiger Bay comes on stream, when they eventually start development down there, they will have to run a main right the way past that Galileo site. And so that would be a time to hook it into the main system.
Yeah, Kim, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just speak to that a little bit. So this is part of the Tiger Bay Holdings. And so, as you know, Tiger Bay is in the process of a rezoning application. So that is working its way through. It has been to the board on several occasions. This particular site, ultimately, it's anticipated that this will serve as a regional transit lay-by, and there may be some sort of small transit hub there, which could include public washrooms. There could even be a cafe built within that transit hub permanently. That is in process right now, but just so the EAD is aware that, you know, this site will eventually be redeveloped. And it's likely, it's looking right now that will be sort of a regional transit lay-by where regional buses can pull in, pick up people, people can wait for buses there, etc. So.
Very good. Do you want to move this, Tony?
Yeah,
Or do you want else to have?
no, I just moving the preferred option, number one.
Okay. Sal seconds it. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Can I just,
Yeah, Tony, go ahead.
that doesn't have to go to the board now, does it? It does have to go to the board. Okay. Is that?
Yeah,
so what
Kristen?
Thanks,
we've got-
Chair.
We got
Yes, it does go.
6.5.
Yeah, I just wanted to propose that we put Kim back in the waiting room and bring her back as a late item. If you want
Okay.
a verbal update on that.
Yes, okay,
Okay.
thank you.
But I
Thanks.
want to hear about these raves that Tony and Russell are attending. Okay.
And I will admit
That comes
Ms.
later.
LaFrance for the next two items.
Miss LaFrance, where's the next two items? There we go. Okay. Second quarter financial.
So we're on 6.4. Information report. Hello, Suzanne.
Hello, I'm Suzanne LaFrance, Director of Finance, and the Q2 financials for the EAD services are shown, and it's just showing all of the revenues and expenses up to June 30th. And nothing of concern with these services. The building inspection services, the revenues are quite high this year, already received 90% of the budgeted revenues. So if that pace continues, there'll definitely be a surplus carry forward. There also will probably be a surplus in elections due to the UBCM being virtual. So there'll be a surplus carrying forward there too. Emergency planning, there's a lot of new projects happening that were just kind of budgeted as a projection with not knowing for sure whether these would be these grants would be approved. So the budget looks a little different. There's not all, like the budget was one bulk amount and I divided it up by the projects when we knew when the projects were approved. So it looks a little different there. No other concerns from my side. I wonder if I can take any questions on me.
Vivian, go ahead.
Morning, Suzanne. Thank you. I'm sad to see my $300,000 still sitting there in Community Works Funds for Seton Park. No action. That's been there since I started. But that's not a question. When I looked down, so we were excited about the potential Texas Creek Park, which is no more. And I see item 53200, time allocation, Texas Creek Park. There's $6,058. That's time allocation for what we did, looking into that.
Yes, that is staff time cost. So it's staff time, their wage plus a benefit amount to capture the full staff time cost, and it's then the revenue then goes to that department, and I believe it was UES.
Okay.
And that was in 2020.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Can I have a motion then to approve this as presented? Okay, moved by Sal, seconded by Tony. Kristen?
Thanks, Chair. Just a motion to receive.
Oh, okay. A motion to
Thank you.
receive then, moved by Sal, seconded by Tony. Call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Thank you. So now 6.5.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Okay, Vivian, do you want to speak to this?
mute, you're muted. You're on mute.
Yeah. Thank you. Here I am. I'm distracted by the notion of you guys at this rave. Okay. Select funds. I wanted to make a motion. Okay, I have a question about select funds. On area B in December 2020, I see some costs have been taken out for the Seton Fire Services notice. And I remember setting aside a couple $100 for the mail out notice for Seton Fire Services. And it appears that it's being spent. Could I please request a copy of the letter that was sent out? I guess that request is for CAO Helmer.
I'm so sorry, Vivian. Which line are you looking at? I don't.
Oh,
see
no,
this
no
thing.
problem, Suzanne. I'm just jumping into my highlighted copy. So I have a resolution, but first of all, I had a question. Under area B, select services, cost center 2902. Under expenditures, December EAD 2020.
Okay, yes, I see this. Yeah.
Yep. So, right, mail out cost.
83 and 70. Yeah, we can get a copy of that to you. No problem. Yeah.
See, I'm just guessing because some funds have been taken out of that the letter went, and I would really like to see the letter that went to the Seton constituents. So I wasn't sure who to ask, but this is how it came to my attention. And then my other request is for, and I've communicated with the area directors about this, a commitment of some general select funds. And let me just get the number right. So I'm in D, just bear with me. I have to get back to the right page. General select is 2,900. I wanted to make a motion for some funds to go towards the community sea to sky services. Right, I'll get the name right for. Okay, I'd like to commit $1,500 to Sea to Sky Community Services, specifically for children's programming, and $500 to the Lillooet Area Library Association, also for children's programming. So I'll make that motion. The background is just that we asked Director Stoner about a gift for her in celebration of the new pregnancy and so forth. And she asked for some used kids' books, which Director Ford or Chair Ford and I are working on, no problem. But she said maybe a donation to Sea to Sky Community Services, specifically for children's programming. And I thought that was a good idea. And so I thought general select funds for $1,500, and then just to make it fair across the region, $500 to go to the Lillooet Area Library Association, also for children's programming. So I'll make that motion and be quiet.
Tony, do you have a question or you're seconding it?
Well, I don't know what the process is here. I'll second it, and then well, I have some comments. Vivian, did you get my email?
I sure did. And I did phone and leave you a message back. My thinking, because I know, and I appreciate your suggestion that it be tagged to libraries specifically for children's books, but having been on the receiving end of different kinds of funds, you know, some libraries may have more than enough children's books, but they may have other children's programming that they want to pursue. So I don't like to necessarily tag or restrict the funding. I feel like these two community service groups know how to spend money on children's programming. They'll know what they need. If they need books, they'll certainly get books. But if there's something else that fits better in their programming, then let them decide. So that was my thinking. And I wanted to stay close to what had been requested. And so that's why I'm staying with the Sea to Sky Community Services. We could also make another resolution around children's books if you wanted to, but I didn't want to change this one, Tony.
Then I won't second this then. Shall I share now with what I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, first of all, I really like the idea of recognizing, honoring, however we want to express that, Jenna and her child. And so I have absolutely no problem with that at all. When I was looking at it, I was thinking, okay, it needs to be regional, because we're dealing with her as a regional director, not as a councillor from Squamish. So it needs to be regional. I really support Sea to Sky Community Services. I have absolutely no problem with giving them money most of the time, except that this particular thing, you know, Jenna's asked for books for her child, which I think is incredibly important. And I think that's important for all children throughout the region. And I'm doing some work right now with the Squamish Library, and I talked to the librarian without getting into specifics of where any funding might come from. And first of all, I asked her, if you had $500, how many books could you buy? And she was talking about the cost of library bound books, and it would $500 would equate to about 20 books. I said to her, if somebody gave you $500 and said you got to spend it on children's books, would that be a problem? She said, absolutely not. You know, and so she was quite comfortable with that. And if they needed some money in another, you know, they've got money in their budget for children's books. So if we give them $500 and they want to take out of their other budget, take some money and spend it on something else, they're able to do that. Sea to Sky Community Services, yeah, they provide a number of different services, including food services in the Pemberton area, and all kinds of support services in Squamish. But I thought if you go to the libraries, if you give the money to the librarians in those 4 separate libraries, then it's very clearly a regional contribution. We're definitely recognizing the whole region if we see the sky could spend all the money in Squamish. It would be needed. I'm sure they won't waste money. So I say it's nothing to do with whether I think Sea to Sky is a good and worthy organization. But I'd just like to ensure that this money, which is coming from General Select for a director on our board, should be spent equally throughout the region. Now, I did say in there, I only was aware of the 4 libraries. Sal's sent me an email saying that there's a library in Goldbridge, but that it is supported by the Lillooet Library. And just one final note about libraries. I've been talking to Hilary Bloom, who's the senior librarian in Squamish, and she has been talking to her colleagues in Lillooet. This is way prior to this thing coming up. She's been talking to her colleagues in the other 3 communities, and what they're wanting to do is get together and talk about improving library services, not just in the communities, but in the areas surrounding the communities, that is, in our electoral areas. And I've agreed to I haven't talked to Jen about this yet, but I want to get a meeting set up with the 4 of us and the 4 librarians, and if any municipal directors want to join us, that's fine as well, just to talk about how the regional district could support library services. So that's something you can look forward to in the future. But I really would like to see this given specifically to the libraries for books. And I think that I can't see that Jenna would, if you want to check with Jenna and see what she thinks of it, that's fine. But if she's asked for books for her child, I would think that she would support the idea of books for many other children. Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah, I'll just throw my 2 cents within. Since I've been on this position or in this position, I've supported our Pemberton Library, with a lot of Area C funds over the years, and I think it's just an amazing place. And the volunteers that work there, the staff, our manager is just so committed. And I think that if you were to give her, I know, an extra $500, she would be very, very happy with that. And they have an amazing program there. So yeah, I think it's a good thing to direct it directly to the libraries. Anyways, that's my thought. Thanks. Sal?
Yeah, I'm in agreement also for the libraries.
Okay. Then I'll withdraw that. And I think Tony said he was not seconding it anyways. And we'll go with 1,000 to each of the 4 libraries as described, specifically for children's books. I mean, who wouldn't be happy with that? How's that?
That was my second point. We started off at $2,000, $500 each, and I thought, hey, the heck with that, let's go $1,000 each. So I'll make a motion that or did you just make that motion, Vivian?
Yeah, she just made that motion.
Oh, well, I'll second it.
So you can second it.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll call the question. All in favor?
I think Kristen.
Kristen?
Sorry, thanks, Chair. Did that motion include some wording in respect of it being in honor of Director Stoner, or not? No wording at all? Thank you.
I think we'll just tell her that she will be happy with that. I think we should just make the commitment to the libraries for children's books. I think, but anyway.
Sal, and then Tony.
Yeah, I'd like to just make a little amendment that that the Lillooet Library also support some funding for the Goldbridge Library for some children's books. Doesn't have to be a lot, but just some.
Tony, go ahead.
Well, I was thinking we're going to send them a check and they're going to think, why the heck have we got that? So maybe in the letter that accompanies the check, we could make some mention of Jenna's child and her wishes to support books and so on. That could just go into then they know why they've got the money.
Yeah, I think that's a good, a valid idea. So do we need to clean this motion up then for you, Kristen?
Thanks, Chair. So I had that moved and seconded. I think if we could do an amendment to incorporate Director Demers' wording, and then vote on the amended motion, please.
Okay, do you want to make that amendment then, Sal?
Yes, I do. Do
Second.
you need some wording, Kristen?
Thanks, Director Demers. Sure, if you want to repeat it.
Okay. That the Lillooet Library support the Goldbridge Library with some of the new children's books.
Tony, did you have a question or were you going to second that?
I think I was just seconding Sal's amendment.
Okay. I'll call a question on the amended motion then. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Great.
Chair,
Yeah,
Now-
go ahead.
thanks. So that was, you called the question on the amendment, and then if you could just
Yeah.
call the question on the amended motion. Thank you.
Okay. So I'll call the question on the amended motion then. Moved by Sal, seconded by Tony. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, Tony, go ahead.
If I may, just before we move on, I just mentioned that the librarians are wanting to talk regionally about library services. One of the things that they want to do is improve the connectivity between the libraries. So if somebody in Pemberton wants to borrow something, if it's available at any one of the other three libraries, it could very easily and automatically be shipped up to Pemberton, and likewise all around. Also looking at how can we serve the rural areas better. So my quick question to you right now is, if we go ahead and set up some kind of exploratory meeting on this topic, would you be interested in that? I think there are some you would. Okay, and I'll keep going with it then. More news to come.
See, I'll just throw in, I see you, Vivian. So what we've done here in Area C, or what all the library's done, I put some money towards our men's shed. They built what they call these mini libraries, and they have put them, there's one at the barn in Pemberton, there's one at Gates Lake Park, there's one at Anderson Lake at the park there, and there's one up the valley, and they keep rotating books, or people can actually put books in these little mini libraries. And that's been a really successful event. I mean, it's amazing how many people actually use them. So that might be a thought too in other areas. Thanks, Vivian.
Thank you, Essel. And I just, our library here is doing amazing things too. And they are also doing some incredible kind of cultural outreach, which they've just been steadily working away on that quietly over the years. And I really would like to commend them for that and support that as well.
Thank you. Can we move on now to director's reports, 7.1? And I'll turn this over to Director Birch Jones.
Thank you, Chair Mac.
You're welcome.
It's just the one-page letter. I'm sure you've seen it. I wanted to recognize that all of our not-for-profits and community organizations have had just an absolutely terrible year here in Area B, not just the COVID that everybody suffered, but the emergency status that we've been under, as well as the devastating fires. And it's not over yet. But I thought in the meantime, this would be a bit of a boost for some of the organizations. And so I'd like to move in recognition of the volunteers and to support ongoing efforts of the community organizations. I'll just continue reading it, contributing to the benefit and betterment of the citizens of Electoral Area B, to allocate $10,000 from the SLRD Electoral Area B Select funds to be dispersed as follows. $2,000 for Lillooet Learning Community Societies towards the hub, $1,000 for Just Do It Sports Society, $2,000 to the Lillooet Sheep Pasture Golf Club, $2,000 to the Mile Zero Riding Club, $1,000 for Skate Lillooet, and finally $2,000 to the East Lillooet Recreation Society. So I will move that.
Okay, and I'll second that. Any discussion? I'll call a question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Very good.
Do sheep actually graze on that golf course?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. I'm hoping you'd pick that up in the Lillooet Agriculture and Food video, because they golfers and sheep, and it works quite well.
Well, I played golf on a course in Kenya where they had cattle wandering around the course that you had to kind of try to avoid. So yeah, interesting.
We'll hold some in Area B, and I'll take you to the golf course.
Maybe we should spread that idea around all the golf courses in this area. They raise a lot of sheep. Oh, jeez. Sorry.
Okay, on to correspondence for action. 8.1, request for funding Rotary Golf Club of Pemberton and Pemberton District Chamber of Commerce 16th Annual Golf Tournament. And I will move this because it's something I support every year, and they do a lot of good with the money they raise. So I'll move this.
Second that.
And if you seconds it, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. 8.2, request for funding Bridge River Valley Community Association fuel mitigation. I see you, Sal.
Yeah, I'll have to
Yeah, go
declare a
ahead.
conflict of interest. I'll
So-
have to declare a conflict of interest for the next 8.2 and 8.3. As my
Okay,
daughter
that-
Kara is employed RBCA, and my wife Debbie Demare is one of the directors on the BRBCA.
Okay. So Kristen, are you going to put Sal then in the waiting room? I see you, Melanie. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. It was just on the last item, whether you were going to provide direction on the use of the golf passes for golfing at the event as part of your
Yes,
direction.
good thing. For sure. What I'd like to do with those passes, I think I already talked to you about this, but anyways, I would like those 4 passes to go to our staff. They could put everybody's name in a hat or however they want to do it. They've done it in the past, and then they can, go and enjoy the golf. One thing I did see, because of the September the 13th, I believe, is when the vaccine passports start, first phase. So you won't need the passport for the golf to go play golf, but if you want to go to the dinner or whatever, you do have to have that to enter the clubhouse. So That's up to the 4 folks that decide to go. Go and have a good time, and whoever goes, I hope they have a good time. So that's what I would make a motion that they go to staff. Tony's going to second that, or Vivian seconds it. And I'll call the
I
question.
had
All
a
in favor?
question.
Opposed, motion carried. Okay, go
Actually,
ahead.
You're too fast. You said 4 passes, but that the math, this is 2,500. Is that not 5? Or am I doing the math wrong?
No, the $2,500, that
Is it-
level of participation gets you 4 golf passes and 4 dinner passes. That comes with that package. So,
Sorry. Yes. Okay. I'll second it. Thank you.
okay, thank you. So I'll call the question again. And all in favor? Opposed, motion carried. Thank you. And thank you for reminding me of that, Melanie.
Kristen, you'll put me in the waiting room, please?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, we're ready to go then, Kristen?
Yes.
So 8.2, request for funding, Bridge River Valley Community Association fuel mitigation, Gun Lake boat launch site.
Well, I think we should discuss this for 15 minutes just to make Sal sweat. No,
I'll
I'll,
move
We got
this.
2 of them.
I'll move it. I'll move it.
Second.
Yeah. Okay, I call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Thank you. So we go to 8.3, excuse me,
Wait
request
till
for funding,
Wait till Sal
Trailer
gets back.
Recreation Community Sustainable Trails Network Project. Tony moves it,
No, wait for
Vivian
Sal.
seconds it, and
Was it?
call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried.
Oh, he has to
Thank
lift
you.
that one as well. Oh, Jesus. Oh, okay.
So we can bring Sal back? Thank you. Number 9, decision on late business. I don't believe there is any. Oh, other than the discussion, I'd like to have a discussion about these raves, or I don't even know if that's the right thing to call them. But anyways, could we get Kim back, please?
Thanks, Chair. So if we could just have a vote on adding that late item, a verbal update from Director Needham, and then I'll let her in after that. Thanks.
I'll
Okay.
make a motion to that effect. I want to hear about this.
I think everybody's in agreement.
We just need a formal resolution to add
Okay,
it as late business.
Oh, I'll move that.
Thank you.
No. Okay, I'll second
Moved by
it.
Tony, seconded by Vivian. Call a question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Kim.
Hello.
We just need
So, as we talked on Friday about that event that went on up the valley, I had a number of people phone me concerned, and the neighbor, I actually went to that person's house on Saturday morning, or Sunday morning, excuse me. And there was still a lot of people still camped, and in fact, they were there for a good part of the day. But so Friday night, Saturday morning, they went till 5:30 in the morning, and on the Sunday they went till 6:30 in the morning. And he phoned the RCMP because I told him about our noise bylaw, but there was no RCMP available to respond. And I talked to Corporal Langtree yesterday for quite a bit of time about this. And Tony's had this problem up the Squamish Valley. And apparently on the August long weekend, there was 9 of them planned for up there. But like Tony's been working on this with all the different agencies, and Langtree was saying that that's what we need to do in our area is get a concerted effort with the COs and the RCMP and Ministry of Forests, ALC, whoever, our bylaw people, because what's happened with the pressure that's been put on in the Squamish Valley, they've just moved up here. And he said there's a number of companies that own these productions. They own all their own equipment, everything, and they just have either covered trailers or cube vans, and they show up kind of unannounced and have everything set up in a couple hours. You know, the way they do it, they go online, and it's some kind of secret online setup where you buy a ticket, and 8 hours, then they'll give you a general idea of where the event's going to take place, but you don't get the actual location until about 8 hours prior to. And that just is to stymie anybody trying to put a stop to them. But like this thing here, the one we had up here in the Divine area 2 weeks ago, pretty remote area, but there was concerns there too. We had people swimming in Gates Creek, and the salmon are trying to spawn, and I mean it's a gong show is what it was. But the other thing I guess that's really important for us in this area is, like Corporal Langtree said, they are so short-staffed. They were bringing people in from the lower mainland just to try and give them enough staff to keep Whistler going. So all our people, I was going to say, I think we only have 3 members that are assigned to Pemberton, and one's off and, whatever. So we had nobody here on the weekend. They were in Whistler, and then from Surrey to look after the Pemberton area. But that's another discussion that we're going to have as we go forward here, because in these outlying rural areas, if you were to phone 911 for RCMP assistance, chances are you're not getting anybody. So that's a real concern. And I know the gentleman that owned the property next door, he was really frustrated. He drove into Pemberton a couple of times and knocked on the door at the RCMP office, and there's nobody there. And when you phone, phone their number, you just get a recorded message. So it's something that, I really think that we as a board are going to have to really come up with a plan and see how we can control these things. I know when I talked to Kim, you were saying that if they stay under 500 people, they can kind of sneak through the cracks. Well, maybe we need to change that number or do something to make it more in line with, being able to control them. So any thoughts from anybody? Tony's the expert on this stuff. He's been dealing with it longer than any of us. So maybe you can give us some insight.
Oh boy, they're not going to go away. You've got crowds of people. You've got young people that want to go to this kind of an event for the music, and everything else that goes along with it. We know what goes along with it. In Europe, young people go to various spots in Greece, Mallorca, places like that, and it's specifically to enjoy these kinds of events. So, you know, to try to stop them, it's probably impossible. As Russell just said, what's happened with the Upper Squamish is that with tightening the controls there, yeah, the organizers have just gone and found somewhere else, and we've transferred the problem from the Upper Squamish to the Pemberton Valley. We've not solved the problem. And what I think the problem is that as long as they're unregulated and continuing to operate in the way they do, they're dangerous. You know, there's no controls about. You know, I'm not sure if they were lighting fire. Well, we know we had fires in the Upper Squamish when we shouldn't have had fires, so you got that kind of a problem. Goodness knows, in terms of health and safety, with all the electricity, they got powerful generators and lights and all of that kind of stuff, and the sort of things that are regulated when you have large groups, concert groups in enclosed surroundings, or even on places like ball fields. So maybe in the long term, we see it as a societal thing and say, people want to do this. And when you really ask the question, what's so bad about them? Well, you know, they're noisy as hell and they upset neighbors. So, but if you regulate it and put them in places where the noise is not going to matter, then maybe that's the way to go with it. If you don't want to go that way, then basically what you got to do is mobilize the army. Like you need a huge number of people. And what the COs told me, and the RCMP told me in the Upper Squamish, just they don't want to go into those places unarmed. You know, they take it that seriously. Because if you show up at one of them and you want to get in, there's not a young teenage girl at the gate saying, "Excuse me, you don't have a ticket." There's a hulking great nightclub bouncer. You know, they have security. So I don't know. I wouldn't want to just give up and say we don't do anything, but we certainly need a conversation with all of those groups that Russell mentioned, and the only way you can have any effect at all is to have everybody involved. And then, as Russell also alluded to, it's not as though they advertise a month in advance and say we're going to have a rave at this point. It's all done on social media. It's all last minute. It's all coded, and yeah, you know, you have no idea unless you're in on the whatever you call it, the circuit. Then and I don't know how you get in on it. I'm assuming that if I tried, they'd rule me out because of my age and just suspect me for being a spy or something like that. But I should ask my granddaughters, how do you infiltrate the rave scene? They probably know.
Kim, you have something you want to say?
Yes. So we have been in communication with this particular event organizer. The event was called Neon Meadows. I went up there on Sunday. I drove to the end of the meadows. I saw no sign of it. I still don't actually know the property that it was held at. I was told by the organizer that it was at the old Bradley farm, but he so far has not given me an address. So this particular event organizer was advised of various levels of regulations that the SLRD has. I'll just go through them. So we have a special events permit. So that's run by our protective services department. Special events permits have three classes. Class 1 is for 200 to 499 attendees. Class 2 is events with 500 to 999 attendees. And Class 3 are events with over 1,000. So that would be things like the Pemberton Music Festival. So depending on what class of special event, there are different criteria that an event organizer has to meet and different things that they have to provide us with. So a smaller event, you know, they might have to, you know, get some approval from Vancouver Coastal Health for their waste management or something like that. But as it gets to class 3, there needs to be security and all sorts of things. And so we went through that with the Pemberton Music Festival because there were, I don't know, 40 or 50,000 people attending that one. So the trigger for it is 200 people. The next sort of regulation is the gathering for an event regulation. That is something that has been allowed by the Agricultural Land Commission for properties within the Agricultural Land Reserve. So the ALC and our bylaws are aligned with the ALC, allows for gatherings for an event. So any farmer is allowed to have 10 gatherings for an event, and they are allowed to have 150 people. That is allowed. There are a number of criteria that are associated with a gathering for an event. You have to have farm status on your property, which means you have to have a productive farm, and a number of other criteria. No single event can be more than 24 hours in duration. And so there are some rules around that. The other regulation that we have in effect is our noise bylaw. And of course, 3 of the electoral areas, area A is soon to follow, but 3 have a noise bylaw in place. So there are regulations around noise and disturbance. So with respect to this particular event, the organizer was advised of all of these regulations. And they got back to us, and they have found their way through, and they had advised that actually there were 2 separate private events going on. They were gatherings for event. Both of them were under 150 people, so they were able to get around the special events permit, and they were in compliance with the gathering for an event provisions. So if one of these party organizers can meet with this criteria, as far as our land use regulations go and our permitting goes, they are on the up and up. We did not receive a noise bylaw that I'm aware, a noise bylaw complaint that I'm aware of. We have not received any complaints that I'm aware of. The RCMP were advised of this event, as was the conservation officer. So that's sort of the state of the union on these things. If people can work within our regulations, and they are figuring out our regulations, they can make these things happen. So, I mean, the only way we can really, I guess, is stop these things is to be very proactive and actually have somebody out there counting bodies entering the events, you know, monitoring the noise. We can dig into the gathering for event regulations to ensure that farms have farm class if they are indeed on farm properties, but some of them aren't. If they're up in the Darcy Devine area, they're likely not in the ALR. So there's no regulations around gatherings for an event other than zoning. So zoning would prevent sort of uses of the land that are outside of zoning. However, people are allowed to have private parties at their properties. So these things become quite challenging. And as somebody noted, you know, there is risk to our staff. And of course, a lot of these things are happening weekends when our staff aren't available and aren't working. And I wouldn't really want to send any staff out to these places at night when, you know, there's a lot of risk. So I am not sure what the answer is. I mean, one thing we try to do is get out ahead of them. So when we see these things being advertised on Instagram and Facebook, as was the case for the Neon Meadows event, we reached out, and the Lillooet also reached out to Eventbrite, who is the organizer selling the tickets. selling tickets on behalf of the organizer. We also found the organizer, reached out to them, advised them of all the rules and regulations, and let them know that there would be enforcement if there were violations. But as I said, they got back to us with the response that indicated that they would be operating within all of our current regulations.
Yeah, the only problem with all that is they were BSing you from the get-go. That event started on Friday night and it ended on Sunday. So it's a 48-hour event, and it was nonstop. There was definitely well over 500 people there. In fact, who knows how many? Just from the size of their camping area, this property is 15 acres. Yeah, and they just, you know, they advertise it. First, they were advertising it as a wedding. So that in that case, it's 150 people. They just, like I say, they flaunted every rule. They tell us what we want to hear, but yeah, they're just thumbing their nose at us. And back to the you know, the safety aspect of the thing. When I went to visit the neighbor, I mean, I drove right, they have a common driveway, these two properties. And, you know, I drove right by all the people camping, and, you know, they're brushing their teeth in, you know, Coca-Cola or whatever. And they had about 6 porta potties, you know, and I know what the festival people had to, you know, produce to get their permits and that. And I know that was way, way bigger and all that. But this, like the neighbor said, he had people on his property. There's a brush line right down the driveway, and there's people on his property, you know, using it to go to the bathroom and stuff. And so it's just totally unacceptable. So I think we need to come up with a plan. And like Tony says, maybe there's a designated spot in the middle of nowhere where these people can go and make all the noise they want and not bother anybody. I know they were having them in the Sioux River Valley, and you know, the thing with the fires at the one in Devine here, in the Devine area, that is on an ALR land there, the little pieces that are there. Yeah, they had campfires going, and, you know, that was before the rain and all that stuff. But anyways, they just, like I say, they push the envelope, and they know that nobody's going to come and do anything about it. So we got to figure out something to, you know, allow them to happen, but to allow them to happen in a controlled, safe manner. So that's my take on it. Kim.
Yeah. If any of the board members are aware of the addresses of these properties or names of property owners, any information that will allow us to identify, you know, who owns the property, please let us know. We can send out bylaw notices after the event. And in this case, there may have been a number of violations, so that you know, our average ticket is about $500. So some of these are probably going to have 2 or 3 violations that we can send notices on. So yeah, please advise me if you know the name of or address. We can get on that.
This particular individual, he just sold the property, but he's not leaving till the end of October. So yeah, I know the guy's name, and I will definitely get his address, and I will forward that to you. The property up here in Devine, I can get the address from that, and then we can maybe just figure out who owns it. That property has been sold too, but yeah, I'll get you that information for sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just be aware, it's just
Tony.
part of the cost of business. You know, if you're organizing one of these things, you say, okay, we know the police are not going to show up. There's nobody going to show up and count heads or anything like that. So we're not really worried about that. We just tell them we're meeting this regulation and that one and that one and that one. But if they do come and check and we end up with 5 tickets, $500 each, $2,500, nothing. We can pay that. They don't care. They don't care. Then, I'm surprised you actually found someone that actually talked to you, because most of these are anonymous. We don't know who organized the thing. They do it, they have it, and it's finished and over before most people know it's even started. And in the Upper Squamish, it was on Crown land. It wasn't on private. They weren't on private land. They were on Crown land. So, it would take a major effort to stop them. And I think all we'd be doing is pushing them further and further away, which may not be a bad thing, but as you say, they had fires going when there was a fire ban. These people don't care. Most of them.
Any further comments, or we beat this to death? Yeah, Vivian, go ahead.
I'm pretty impressed with what staff actually did, like the extra footwork on tracking down and going through Eventbrite and actually talking to the organizer. That's commendable. It's better than I thought you would have been able to do. And I like it that if you've got a reliable report, you can follow up with the bylaw offense. That's well worth doing. And those can build over time, right? That they can add up. That's a lot better than nothing. I'm a little more concerned about that the RCMP not being available full stop. We have that same problem here. If one of them goes up to the remote area A, for example, there's absolutely no one left here in town for any other emergency. This just reflects how thinly those emergency resources are stretched. And that's probably why this is somewhat dangerous, because we really don't have the on-call people for the emergencies that would happen. And besides which, they're disturbing all the nesting birds and the owls and everybody else.
Sal, go ahead. Excuse me. Sal?
Yeah, to Vivian's comment about police coming up to Area A, which is really infrequent. We actually had a complaint about a campfire in a rec site when the fire ban was on, and also noise. And they tried to get hold of the, they reported to the wildfire service and no action. And the wildfire service actually went to the compliance and enforcement, and they couldn't do anything. They just couldn't come out. And eventually they contacted the RCMP, and the RCMP actually came out and they were on site at 12 o'clock in the morning. And so that's 2 hours out, probably half an hour there and 2 hours back to Lillooet. And to Vivian's point, there was nobody there in Lillooet during that 4.5 hour period. And we've got the same issue as what Russell is talking about. That's what we need. We need more enforcement from all the different agencies to help with this particular problem. The issue of it moving from the Squamish Valley up to the Pemberton area. Where is it going next? Up to Lillooet? They got lots of big fields there. And yeah, it's definitely a concern. I'm just wondering if something that we could bring up at the UBCM as a resolution to help with this problem. And I'm sure other regional districts have the same issue if this is taking place.
Yeah, I think when I talked to Corporal Langtree, like I said to him, when Surrey make their switch over to their own police force, there's going to be a number of RCMP officers that then will get, I'm sure some will maybe become part of that force, but I said, hopefully you're going to gain a bunch of manpower, which can be distributed throughout the province. And he said, well, that's sort of what they're hoping, but he said that's wishful thinking also, because he said they are, I think, like 500 or something officers short in this province, and they have been for years. You know, I know that the Pemberton detachment for the last probably 15 years, if Whistler wasn't where it is, we wouldn't have a Pemberton detachment, because they use Pemberton as a backup for Whistler, and that's how it's been run for the last, like I say, 15 years. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. But you know, we definitely need more officers on the ground. So I don't know how we go about that, going through UBCM or you know, getting our individual MLAs involved and really put the pressure on, because it is the provincial government that, you know, mandates these resources. So we'll have to come up with something. And you know, maybe Melanie could give us some insight on where we should go and who we should be, you know, talking to.
Thank you, Chair. I would say that this is involving multiple jurisdictions, because there's ourselves, there's the member municipalities, there's the RCMP, there's the COs, there's some of the properties where they hold it is actually Crown land. So there's a number of different things. They've previously occurred in Lillooet, and there could be other First Nations jurisdictions involved. And as you say, it's beyond SLRD. This is a provincial concern. So this is probably something that would need to have a lot of parties at the table in order to find a broader solution, so that they're not finding the loopholes between the different jurisdictions to make this work for themselves, and creating problems on the landscape for, well, all of the different problems they do create. The idea of a safe location where these things can be supervised and kept within certain parameters is a great idea. I don't know if the individuals that participate in these events or organize these events if that would be enough to make them want to do that. But those are the kinds of questions we would have to look at, is like, what motivates it? How can it be managed effectively? What can we do to prevent them from occurring in other locations? And it's a broad question that would have to involve a lot of different people at the table. Certainly we could be part of the solution, but you know, we probably have this, if we reached out to Fraser Valley, they'd probably be saying the same thing. So we really need to look at the bigger picture. Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Should then this be brought up? Yeah, Tony, I see it. Should this be brought up at the board table for discussion then with all the member municipalities? Melanie,
Yes,
what do you think of that?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think it could be referred to the board, because the member municipalities are facing the same issue. So you could say this is regional, and look at what the board might like to do in terms of follow-up actions and seeking other jurisdictions on what they're at. I did reach out to the member CAOs in the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District as well, to find out what their experiences have been this year. And I did receive one response from Squamish, and they are having a lot of problems, as well as informal response from Whistler that they're seeing the same thing. So it is affecting the member municipalities as well.
Okay, Tony?
Yeah, I think you've got to look at it from both ends, if you like. What we're looking at the moment is the problem, and how on earth can we deal with this? How can we enforce? How can we police, and so on? And I quite frankly think the answer to that is we can't. we don't have the resources, and those resources are not going to be available anytime soon. And the organizers know that. So you look at it from the other way around. Why are these things happening? They're happening because you've got a population that, of a certain age group that really wants to gather and listen to music and dance and drink and probably use some substances as well. They want to do that, and they're going to do it. They're going to do it somewhere. So maybe you've got to start looking at that end of it, saying, how do we make it easier for an organizer to find a place where they're not going to be hassled, where we allow it to happen? And at the moment, we've got rules and regulations, and most of them are, even if they go that far looking at, they're not going to do it. They go, oh, heck, I'm not doing all that stuff. It's too much bureaucracy. So it needs to be, if we want to get any kind of a handle on it at all, we need to loosen up some rules and regulations, not just at the local level, but at the provincial and national level as well. If we're not prepared to do that, then we just have to live with the problem. Yeah. I'm very pessimistic on this issue, aren't I? I don't want to use the word
I mean, I agree with you. It's just, it's a huge issue. And yeah, do you try to control it and have some semblance of order, or just let them go crazy? The problem with that is somebody's going to get hurt at one of these things at some point in time, whether it's driving to or from or at the event itself. So Vivian, go ahead.
I'm really curious about this, and I'm thinking that, so Kim, the next time you see one posted, I think we should assign you to be undercover, and I think you should buy a ticket. But I would actually be very interested in what the terms and conditions are around the purchase of one of these tickets, because somewhere in here, when the money exchanges hands, there is a contract and there is some liability. And so there is more information to be gleaned, especially if we're going to talk about it at the board level. So
yeah, I'll just, for the
or maybe
information.
we'll send Russell.
Yeah. They have 10 rules of, responsibility, and they take them from the Burning Man event down in Arizona or wherever it is, Nevada. And, it's the same thing there. It's, no booze, no drugs, no this, no that. Well,
yeah, right.
I mean, everything that they're saying, of their 10 rules, damn well that every one of those 10 rules doesn't exist when you're on site. So yeah, it's just pretty interesting. But anyways, so what do we need here, Kristen? Do we need, or Melanie, do we need a motion to just refer this discussion to the board table?
Chair, I think my recommendation would be a referral to the committee of the whole.
Okay.
So that you can have a more fulsome discussion at that level, and then see what resources, if any, you would like to allocate to this and where to go next.
Okay, well, I'll make that motion then, that we refer this to an upcoming committee of the whole whenever you feel we can, get it in time-wise. Can I get somebody to second that? Vivian? Thank you. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you for that. We go to a director's notice of motion. Do we? Oh, or Sal, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a comment on the previous discussion. And it's fine until you're the person next door.
Yeah,
Property owner next door or around it that hears that. And like in our journey around our circle route that we did yesterday, we stopped in and bought some produce from a friend of ours that has a farm in the Pemberton Valley, and it was his brother that was next door, and yeah, they were even upset. That was the first conversation. As soon as we got there, that's what they started talking about. And yeah, it's very, very frustrating for the people because they got nothing they can do. They didn't get any help, and it's very frustrating, especially with our noise bylaws, that nothing can be done about the noise after, in the Pemberton Valley, I guess it's 11 o'clock at night, and nothing had happened. And that music played on till early in the morning. So you can imagine how the people felt that were next door to these to this event in the Pemberton Valley. So I just want to make that comment.
Yeah, thank you for that. Okay, everybody is okay with that. So director's notice of motion, do we have any? I don't believe so. And 12 is Tony's
Move adjournment.
favorite part. Okay, I'll second that. Call a question, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much.